Learning an instrument is fun, at least for me it is. I actually took some saxophone lessons around the 4th grade, and even though I kind of dropped off the saxophone there, when I was around 13 years old, I picked up my very first guitar. Eventually, I picked up a little bit of bass, some piano, and even moved into some audio production and songwriting. I haven't actually done anything professionally or for anyone else, but it's just mostly for me, and I do it as a hobby. I like doing it anyways. So a few years ago, I really started to get into synthwave, retrowave, whatever you want to call that genre. And while I was aware that I really enjoyed that 80s synth sound, I didn't really start diving into it until about a few years ago. So much so that last year I even picked up my very first analog synthesizer, the Arturia Microburte. Now, let me be clear, this is not an in-depth review of the Microburte. Rather, this is what it's like learning a new instrument like an analog synthesizer, and what my experience has been like using this as my first synthesizer for the last year or so. You know how when you're learning something brand new that you're really starting to get into, you look for ways to talk about it with your friends or online, all with the hopes of finding someone that connects with you and is on the same trajectory or on the same path as you are? Well, that's the type of experience that I want to take with this video. So with that, I'll get into a little bit of details of what the different settings do, but I'll talk about how I experienced it and the things that I've done since then. Okay, so I understood what analog meant. My guitars are analog. Those are sound waves that have to be converted to digital waves when you're recording. So while you don't necessarily need to plug into a computer to use it, you do have to plug into an audio interface of some kind that has speakers then connected to that, or even like a guitar amplifier will work as well. The device itself doesn't emit sound, so you do need something for it to output to. I have my plugged into the Focusrite Scarlett Studio that is then connected to a Pile stereo amplifier and outputs to a pair of passive Klipsch R15M bookshelf speakers, hence the need for the amplifier. Okay, so we're all plugged in and we'll start with the oscillator there. Without one of these, you won't get any sound. You'll notice that it's really just clipping noises. Don't do this too loud, by the way. Or blow out your speakers there, but you hear the clipping there. So let's just move some settings around. We do actually need to increase the cutoff a little bit, and as well as the envelope. So we'll increase the decay a little bit, give it some sustain and some release. And now you hear some notes. I'll turn up the volume a little bit. So we have three waveforms here. We have three waveforms. They are sawtooth, square, and triangle. We also have these overtone knobs that either add a subnote an octave down or a fifth note up, which can give you some cool sounding notes with single keystrokes. Here's what that sounds like. So as I turn to the fifth, you'll hear a little bit of that fifth now. And it can transition to whatever your liking is. We also have these wheels over here. We have a mod wheel and a pitch wheel. The pitch wheel can go up or down a full step, and the mod wheel is controlled by the mod matrix. The mod wheel is controlled by options for a cutoff or a low frequency oscillator option. I'll leave some resources below that'll help, as it can be a little bit daunting understanding how to use even the simple mod matrix here. Now this filter section lets you fine-tune things like cutoff, resonance, envelope amount, as well as even giving you a little bit of a brute factor here, which as you can hear, gives you a bit of a distorted sound. Now I'd be careful with that as well, because that can blow your speakers if you don't do this correctly. Now, one of my favorite features of the Microburte is the sequencer or the arpeggiator here. So it has a bunch of different options. You can even record and set your own custom pattern. But as you can see, you can adjust the rates. Different patterns are being selected here. You have up to 8 options. And you can get all spoopy with it. And it gets really fun to play with this. And especially as you start playing around with the different settings, you can then have your pattern playing in the background, and you can start adjusting knobs to your liking as much as possible. And as you play around with it, you can get really stranger things with it. So here I am just playing around with the different settings, adjusting the sub and fifth, changing the waves and the glide, the mod wheel adjustments. And I'll just let you see what I'm messing with. And yeah, this can get really fun. So it is pretty fun just to kind of discover what sounds you like, and you play around with it a little bit, adjust whatever settings you need, and you can hear it live adjust. That's where it's a little bit different from a traditional instruments, where you kind of have to learn where the different notes are, and even though you're pressing keys here, you can quickly adjust and fine-tune whatever settings you like. The Microburte has plenty of inputs and outputs on the back, so if you really start getting into different synthesizers, you can plug in and add it to your stack. You have outputs for gates, pitch, MIDI, and even a USB bus if you wanted to plug it into your computer. So it really opens up the ability to get creative with it, even though it is more of a beginner's synthesizer. I'm personally not quite there yet, but that has been my experience using it so far. It's been great. I really enjoy it. So if you're in the market for a synthesizer, this might be a good choice for you. So with that, here's a simple song that I made using this, and I hope you enjoy.